Have you ever hit submit on a health insurance application and just wondered what happens next? It can feel like you're sending your information into a black hole. Well, in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on that whole process. We're going to show you exactly how insurers decide if you get covered and, just as importantly, what you're going to pay for it.
Right? You've done your part, you've filled out all the forms, you answered a million questions, but what's going on the other side? Well, the person who holds your application in their hands is called an underwriter, and the whole system they use is called underwriting. So let's break down what that actually means.
Okay, so underwriting is basically the insurance company's risk assessment game plan. Think about it. Their main goal is to build a balanced team, a stable pool of customers. If they only insured people who are very likely to get sick, they'd go broke pretty fast, right? So the underwriter's job is to be the gatekeeper, making sure they have a healthy mix of folks.
Now, you might think your part of the story begins when you start filling out that application, but actually, your insurance agent has already been hard at work. They play this really critical role in what the industry calls pre-selection. They are, for all intents and purposes, the first line of defense in this whole process.
Think of your agent as your guide. They're the ones gathering all the intel, your medical history, your doctor's contact info, the whole shebang. Now, they can give you a pretty good idea of what to expect, but, and this is important, they can't guarantee you'll get coverage. Probably their most crucial job is to hammer home the importance of being honest. Seriously, any little fib can come back to bite you and could even get your policy canceled down the road.
So, once your agent hits send, your application lands on the underwriter's desk. And this is where the real investigation begins. Their job is to basically become a detective, analyze all the information, and build a complete risk profile for you. And that profile, it determines everything. So what clues are these detectives looking for? Well, it's way more than just your medical records. They're looking at your overall health, sure, but also your family's health history, your lifestyle, your job, even your hobbies. All these little pieces help them build a complete picture of you as a potential risk. Of course, the biggest piece of the puzzle is your health. That's a given. Underwriters are going to dig into your current physical condition, your height, weight, all that, as well as your entire medical history. They'll also glance at your family's health history to see if there are any potential genetic issues they need to be aware of. It's all about predicting your future healthcare needs.
And then there's this interesting term they use, moral hazard. This is basically code for lifestyle choices that might flash like a big red warning light for them. The obvious ones are things like heavy drinking or drug use, but it can also include stuff you might not expect, like a really poor credit history. To an insurer, that might just signal irresponsible behavior.
Your job is also a huge factor. I mean, it makes sense, right? An office job is pretty low risk. But a job where you're working with heavy machinery, that's high risk. And here's a fun fact. If you have two jobs, they are absolutely going to base your premium on the more dangerous one.
It's not just your 9 to 5 they care about, it's your 5 to 9 too. Those high adrenaline hobbies, or avocations as they call them, things like skydiving or bungee jumping, they signal a much, much higher risk than, say, gardening. So if you're an adrenaline junkie, you can bet that underwriter is going to take a much closer look at your file.
Your age and sex also get factored in, but there are some big caveats here. Generally, the older you get, the more you can expect your premiums to go up. And while statistically, women do tend to use more healthcare services than men, it is absolutely illegal for an insurer to deny you coverage based on your gender.
Okay, so the detective work is done. The underwriter has gathered all the evidence and analyzed all these different factors. Now it's time for the verdict. They're going to assign you a risk classification, or a final score, that will determine if you get approved and what you'll pay.
So you'll usually fall into one of three buckets. Preferred is the top tier. These are folks who are healthier than average and they get a discount, the best rates. Standard is for most people, average risk, and they pay the standard price. And then there's substandard. These are higher risk folks who might still get coverage, but it's going to cost them more. And of course, there is a fourth possibility. If the underwriter looks at all the evidence and decides the risk is just too high, that the chance of paying out big claims is just too great, then the application will be declined. At that point, that person is considered uninsurable, at least by that specific company.
Okay, so why should you care about any of this? Because understanding how this all works actually gives you some power. It lets you influence your own insurability and what you pay. It's not just about what happens in some back office. It's about the choices you make every single day.
So let's do a quick recap. The big takeaways are: first, underwriting is just a balancing act insurers have to do. Second, every single detail on your application goes into building your risk profile. Third, that profile, your final score, is what determines if you get coverage and how much it costs. And finally, and maybe most importantly, honesty is critical.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. Now that you know the underwriter's playbook, think about your own life. While some risk factors are totally out of your hands, a lot of them aren't. And understanding the game can help you take more control of your health, your lifestyle, and ultimately, your financial future. Thanks for joining us.